guys, Katy Huller here with Kids Can Read and Write. Today I want to help you help your kids read words with the K-N trick. Do you know what K and the N say? K and the N say N when they're together. And here's a way to help your kids remember that. So the K in the KN trick is actually silent. A lot of people will just say, oh, it's a silent K, which means don't make that sound. Just make the N sound when you see it. But here's a fun way to help your kids remember it, because if you just say, oh, it's a silent K, it might go in one ear and out the other. So here's what I like to tell kids. See how K has this mouth wide open to that little letter next to it? Well, K is very, very hungry. And he has his mouth open wide for eating. And when he sees N, it looks like a nut to him, right? Like a little nut that's been opened up, ready to pull that nice, delicious nut out. So when K sees N, he opens his mouth wide. He sneaks right up next to him. He gets ready to eat him. And N turns and sees him. And he goes, no, you don't. Okay, so K and the N. K is super hungry with that big wide open mouth. He sees N, which looks like a nut that's been open and ready to eat. He gets ready to eat it, and N goes, no, you don't. And that's the story behind the K and the N. Now, you might think that's all you need to tell your kids, and that now they'll be able to read all the KN words. But remember, when you're first teaching kids to read, they not only need to know letters and sounds, they also need to know how to blend those letters and sounds together effectively, and they need to know tricks, okay? Those are the most important beginning things for kids to know. And if they don't know them, they're going to struggle with a lot of these words. Because just because you know that K and the N say nah, doesn't mean you know what to do when this E is here, right? That is a trick. Now, if you've been following me, then you may be aware of a lot of these tricks already. But if you're not, or you just need a systematic, explicit way to teach your beginning readers how to read and write with all these tricks, you need to teach them letters and sounds, a good blending technique tricks, look up our Black Belt reading program. I'll leave the link in the comments, so don't worry about it. But you can go to kidscanreadandwrite.com, or you can go to kidscanonlineacademy.com to find it. But here we go. Let's practice reading with the KN. So remember that mouth is wide open, and he's going to say no, you don't to the K when he sees him coming. Now we're going to say n, b, n, ob, knob. What is a knob? It's like a doorknob, what you turn to open or close a door, the knob. Okay, that little thing you grab onto and turn. All right, so knob. So that one, if your kids know the KN trick, if they know to not go knob, right? You see how that would be confusing? If they know this trick and they go, oh, there's that K sneaking up on the N, and N goes, no, you don't. Now, and they have a blending technique, and they know their letters and sounds, they should be able to read this. Knob. Now, always make sure you're not putting too much space between the sounds. If you're going b, that's too spread out. You want knob. You want it to come together as much as possible so it sounds as much like the word as possible. Your kids will have to learn some sort of a blending technique to really hear it, but you want to make it as easy as possible. So make sure you're not putting space. Not only does that slow down reading, makes it incredibly hard for kids with any kind of auditory processing issues to ever hear the word. So I know it's super common to really the word, but you can't hear that. You want it to be knob, knob. Hear the difference? Drag your vowel into that next sound. It's going to make it faster. It's going to make it smoother. It's going to make it sound so nice. Knob, knob, like that. All right, let's try this one. So if your kids know the KN trick and they say N or N here, and then they try to sound out the rest using our good blending technique, but they don't know this sleepy E trick, it might sound like N-if-e, nife, and they won't get it. You need them to also know about that sleepy E, that whenever that E's at the end, he's going to boss the closest vowel, okay? He can only get over one letter, occasionally two, but usually just one, and boss it that way. So the I is going to say his name here. Now, if your kid doesn't know that, it's going to be a problem. That's why they must know the tricks. That's why our black belt reading program goes over all the tricks they really need to know to read and write, and helps give exercises for them to practice those tricks so they can really get it down. Because it's one thing to tell them and do a few words, but it's another thing for kids with memory issues, processing issues, and that sort of thing to retain it and keep using it and see it when it's mixed in text. So if you need help teaching your kids the tricks, look up the Black Belt Reading Program. That's why I made it, okay? But let's say your kid already knows this. Now they can read this word. Knife, knife. And that's like a knife that you cut things with, okay? You might cut your sandwich in half with a knife, or chop up your vegetables with a knife, okay? Knife. But it's spelled knife, knife. So you have to remember it's one of those silent K words. And for spelling purposes, that's going to be really important that you practice, that you help your child know some of the most common KN words, because they won't hear the K when they're spelling the words, okay? You just hear that N, and you don't want to spell knife like that. It needs that K with it. All right, so again, if your kids know the KN trick, that doesn't mean they can read all the KN words yet. There are a lot of other tricks that come in these words. So I put this list together to kind of make you aware of that it's not just making sure they know this and then they can read all the words with KN. No, they need to know all of these tricks. So OW is another trick. If it's in the middle of a word, the O will pinch the W and you hear, ow, okay? But when it's at the end of a word or root word, then it goes to pinch, and the teacher likes standing at the end of the line. So when O starts to pinch, he looks up, sees the teacher, he goes, oh, I better not pinch here. I might get in trouble. So that's why here it's not saying ow, it's saying O. Okay, so we're going to go N, O, no, like that. All right, good. So let's see. How about this one? Here we have that KN trick. Let me stop someone from calling me. KN trick. The K and the N, remember that wide open mouth. He goes to eat the nut, and the nut turns and sees him right at the last second and goes, no, 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 you don't. So that's our N. Here's our wide open mouth. Oh, if your child's having trouble with the vowels, help them remember. O is the wide open mouth. Oh, like that. So we have N, ought. N, ought, not. Now, this knot with the silent K is the knot that you have to untangle, okay? Like a big bunch of stuff tangled up together forms a knot, okay? K and the N with the OT, knot. Now, if you take the K off, now you just have the I am not going to do that knot. All right, so that one's pretty easy. You just need to know this trick to get it. What about this one? What do you think? Do your kids need to know any extra tricks for that one? Well, not really. The C and the K both say ka, so you could maybe say, oh, they need to know the C and the K, just say ka. But that says ka, so it's not really a trick. You just say it one time. But you could count that if you want. All right, here's our K in the end. Remember, K opens his mouth, goes to eat the nut turns around. No, you don't. So we go, n, a, k. We go right into the k. If we have two of them at the end, we just say it one time. N, a, k, knock. Like you might knock something over, or you could knock on the door. Knock, knock, who's there? Do you know a joke? You can tell me. If you have a good knock, knock joke, leave it in the comments. All right, how about this one? Could your kids read this if they just know letters and sounds and the regular KN trick? Well, this will help for sure, because what does KN say? No, you don't, right? Nah. But they also need to know the EW trick. And this is another fun one. So I like to tell kids, see how E's mouth is wide open? That was because he was very hungry. And he sees a W. He thinks a W is a big, juicy slice of watermelon. Actually, two big, juicy slices of watermelon. So he's so hungry. He opens his mouth wide, takes a big bite out of that W and goes, ew, you're not a watermelon. You're just a W. So when we read this, we need to know this trick and this trick. Okay, so if your kids don't know these tricks, they're at a disadvantage. They need to know the tricks to be able to sound out unknown words. Now, they might be really good at memorizing words, but at some point, they're going to have to read words they've never seen before. As they get higher and higher in grade level, it becomes more and more prevalent that they have to, figure out bigger words and more unknown words. So if we read this and we know the code, we just say, n, ew, new. Now that's like, I knew that, right? I forgot it, but I knew it. New. So I always tell kids that there are two news. There's new, like that kind of new, like I have a new shirt. Or there's the KN new, like I knew that. And the way you can remember the I knew that one, we keep a lot of what we know or what we knew silent, right? We don't say everything we know or knew. That would be kind of boring. So the silent K one is like, I knew that in my head, but I didn't say it out loud, right? We know a lot of stuff we don't say. All right, how about this word? Could your kids read this word if they only know this trick and regular letters and sounds? What do you think? No. The trick in this word is the I finding the GH hiding. And remember, when I finds GH, I did do a video on this. So if you haven't seen it, go find it. You need to know this trick. When I finds GH hiding in the middle of a word or even at the end, I's the best hide and seek finder. And he shouts out, I see you. So we don't say anything for the GH because they're hiding. They're playing hide and go seek. But the I finds them and says I. So now let's see if we could read it. N-I-T, N-I-T, night. Now, this kind of night is not the same as this kind of night. This night is like late at night, I go to bed. This kind of night with the K is like your knight in shining armor, right? The knight, the one who wears the armor and fights for good, right? The knight. All right, so notice just because you know KN doesn't mean you can read all the KN words yet. For this one, you could if you know to make this sound once. This one, you need this trick. This one, you need this trick. Over here, you needed this trick. You needed this trick. So there are tricks in almost all the words. And that's what you find when you start getting familiar with them. And that's why kids struggle to learn to read and write, because a lot of times nobody's teaching them the tricks. If no one's teaching your kids these tricks, or they're teaching them too slowly, or they're teaching them too fast and your kids can't keep up with them, get the Black Belt Reading Program. It will walk you through all of the tricks, give you huge packets full of exercises to practice that trick in a variety of ways. Spelling, reading, comprehending, all the different things you need to do to make your kid a Black Belt reader and writer, you will find in the Black Belt Reading Program, okay? So look that up. If your child doesn't know these things, look up that program. Get that program. Start teaching them, because that's what's going to make them confident and able to just do it. So in this word, if you know the trick, that's going to help. But you also need to know about two E's together, because that's another trick. When two E's are together, the first one says, hey, remember me, my name is E. Remember me. The second one just listens. So we just say E when they're together. So now we could read it. Na-e, knee. That's like your knee on your leg, okay? So notice, it's one thing to teach your kids this trick. It's another thing to expect them to just be able to read all the words with it. One, they need to know other tricks to read words with it. Two, forgot what I was going to tell you. Two, what's the other thing? They might not recognize it when you get on pages of words. Okay, so that's a common thing I see with a lot of kids. Like, somebody will have taught that KN says nah, and then they expect them to just be able to read all the words with it and find it and all that. Well, some kids can, and other kids, they don't transfer that knowledge to this. So it's really important that you not only teach your kids what K and the N say, but that you give them lots of practice using the KN trick, so that it becomes like part of their muscle memory and part of just something that makes sense to them. I can't tell you how many kids I get in tutoring who they're somewhat familiar with a lot of the tricks, but they don't use them. They haven't transferred the knowledge into use. And I don't know why that is, but it's just how some brains work. They don't automatically transfer information to new situations. And so for those kids, you need to really systematically and explicitly teach them the information and give them lots of real world practice using it. And you can't throw it all at them at once, or it just becomes confusing. Like, I would never put all of these tricks at once for a kid who's just learning to read. I would make it very controlled and maybe put like knob, not, knock, because those you can sound out without knowing other tricks. Or if we'd already learned this trick and this trick, I would add those words in too. But you don't want to just throw every word with that trick at your kid if they don't know the other trick. So remember, if you need help teaching your kids to read and write, look up the Black Belt Reading Program. I made videos for the kids. These are for parents, but I made videos straight for the kids to watch, and you can watch them too, to help them learn the tricks. And then I've also put together huge packets full of practice pages using all the skills they need to use to really get those tricks down. And it builds as you go so that they learn all the tricks and can't really forget them because they're constantly using them. Now, I say can't really forget them. Some kids have really bad memories. They learn and forget, learn and forget, learn and forget. I get that. If that's the case, you just have to keep dumping that information in. Dumping that information in. At some point, they should start remembering it, but if for some reason they don't, then you have to just keep dumping it back in so that they can retain it and use it. Now, at some point when you've read enough, it just becomes stuff you know. Even if they forget the tricks, they should still be able to read. It's the spelling that's usually harder for kids who have really bad memories, especially if they have really bad visual memories. So for that, you just keep practicing, practicing, practicing. All right, guys, I hope this helps you today. I hope you enjoyed learning the KN trick. Please say hello, drop a comment, like, share, all that good stuff. And please come join me again for the next video. I hope you have a fabulous day. I hope this blesses you, and I hope you'll join me again. Thanks so much.